The 1980s in American cities were a vivid, unforgettable era, defined by energy, color, and change. From the bustling streets of New York City to the sunlit avenues of Los Angeles and Chicago, the urban experience was a mix of classic cars, neon lights, and the cultural trends that made the decade so distinctive. Walking through these cities, one could feel the pulse of a society balancing modernity, nostalgia, and emerging technological innovations. Morning in a typical 1980s American city began with the sounds and movements of daily commuters. Streets filled with a variety of vehicles, ranging from boxy sedans and station wagons to muscle cars like the Ford Mustang, Chevrolet Camaro, and Pontiac Firebird. Families loaded into their station wagons or early minivans for school runs and grocery trips, while young professionals drove their compact or sporty cars to downtown offices. Public transportation was still heavily used in larger cities, with buses and subways transporting thousands daily. The mixture of car horns, engines, and the chatter of pedestrians created a dynamic urban soundtrack that defined morning life. Urban architecture in the 1980s was a blend of old and new. Downtown areas featured towering office buildings with reflective glass facades, while older brick or brownstone buildings remained prevalent, particularly in cities like Boston, Philadelphia, and New York. Side streets were lined with small shops, local diners, and neighborhood services, giving each district its own personality. Neon signs were especially noticeable in commercial areas, advertising diners, nightclubs, theaters, and retail stores. These glowing lights would become even more prominent as day turned to night, giving the city a magical, almost cinematic quality. By midday, the streets were filled with both shoppers and office workers. Malls had become major social hubs, particularly in suburban areas adjacent to cities. Inside these malls, teenagers could be found browsing music stores, hanging out in arcades, or enjoying fast food from chains such as McDonald's, Burger King, or Wendy's. The growth of consumer culture during the 1980s was evident not just in malls, but in the proliferation of chain stores, department stores, and specialty shops across urban centers. This was also the era of small businesses, with local bookshops, record stores, and diners contributing to the vibrancy of street life. Cars remained a central part of city life throughout the day. Street parking was a coveted resource, especially in densely populated areas. Classic cars often lined the streets, reflecting the personal tastes of their owners. Muscle cars were symbols of youth and freedom, while practical family cars, like the Chevrolet Caprice or Ford LTD, represented middle-class stability. Traffic patterns and congestion varied from city to city, with areas like Manhattan, Los Angeles, and Chicago facing some of the heaviest traffic, a reflection of the growing reliance on automobiles for daily life. Afternoons often brought a mixture of work, school, and social activity. Office buildings and downtown districts were filled with professionals dressed in the decade's fashion. Wide-shouldered jackets, bold colors, and power suits for men, while women often wore shoulder pads, skirts, and bright accessories. Students in schools and universities could be seen sporting jeans, t-shirts, and sneakers, influenced by pop culture icons and television shows. Music was a defining part of the culture. Boomboxes on street corners, radio stations blasting pop, rock, and early hip-hop tracks, and stores playing the latest hits all contributed to the city's auditory landscape. The 1980s also marked a time of technological transition. Personal computers were starting to appear in offices and homes, video game arcades flourished, and the launch of MTV in 1981 transformed music, fashion, and youth culture. People's lives were increasingly influenced by media, whether through television shows like Miami Vice, which showcased neon-lit streets and glamorous nightlife, or movies that depicted urban adventures and high school dramas, reflecting both aspirations and challenges of city living. Evening brought the most vivid aspects of urban life to the forefront. Neon signs lit up streets and sidewalks, advertising restaurants, bars, and entertainment venues. Nightclubs and music halls offered live performances, drawing young crowds eager for social interaction. The streets buzzed with taxis, cars, and pedestrians, while diners and small cafes became centers of socialization. In areas like Times Square or Sunset Boulevard, the combination of neon lights, bustling sidewalks, and classic cars created an atmosphere that was uniquely 1980s. Socioeconomic contrasts were also visible. While many neighborhoods thrived with vibrant commerce and well-kept streets, some urban areas struggled with poverty, crime, and neglect. Cities like New York and Detroit had districts where industrial decline and social challenges were apparent, while emerging Sunbelt cities such as Houston, Phoenix, and Los Angeles experienced growth and investment, reflected in their modern infrastructure and suburban expansion. Food culture was an essential part of the urban experience. Fast food chains provided quick meals, while diners and cafes served as gathering spots for both locals and visitors. Ethnic cuisine was increasingly popular, reflecting America's growing cultural diversity. Chinese, Italian, and Mexican restaurants could be found alongside classic American diners, allowing residents to experience a blend of flavors reflective of the country's demographic changes. Nighttime entertainment continued into the late hours. Drive-in theaters, though less common than in previous decades, remained popular in suburban areas, often serving as weekend destinations for families and teenagers. Movie theaters in city centers were busy with filmgoers enjoying the decade's iconic films. Live music and cultural events were staples of the urban scene, and city streets remained lively well into the night, especially in entertainment districts. In conclusion, a day in 1980s American cities was a journey through a vibrant, dynamic, and culturally rich environment. The combination of neon lights, classic cars, bustling streets, diverse architecture, and emerging technology created an urban experience that was both exciting and nostalgic. From morning commutes to late-night entertainment, the cities of this era reflected the economic optimism, cultural innovation, and social diversity of America at a transformative moment in history. Observing these cities today through photographs, movies, and personal stories offers a window into a time when American urban life was at once familiar and entirely unique, leaving an enduring legacy that continues to captivate the imagination.